I want to tell you that I hesitated, that before I walked back through those doors, I stopped and thought it through, that I weighed my options the way a rational person would, but I did not hesitate. I went back in like I always do, like I had been going back in for 11 months without understanding why. The fourth floor of Mercy General evacuated at 11:47 on a Tuesday in January. I remember the time because I had just clocked Marcus out by mistake and was fixing the error in the system when the intercom activated. Not the fire alarm, not the emergency tone, just the intercom, with that flat voice that announces blood pressure checks and medication rounds.
All fourth floor personnel, please initiate Protocol 7. This is not a drill. Please begin patient transfer to third floor holding immediately.
Protocol 7 is not a fire protocol. It is not a gas leak protocol. I had worked psychiatric nursing for 9 years, and I had never heard Protocol 7 activated on an occupied ward. I pulled the binder from the shelf under the desk and looked it up. The page was there. The description was 3 words: administrative discretionary transfer. No cause listed. No escalation procedure. Just those 3 words and a signature line at the bottom that had been signed before I was hired.
Dara, we moving? Rourke just called the floor. She wants everyone on 3 in 10 minutes. Patients, too.
Marcus was already in the hallway with a wheelchair, moving the way he moved when he was nervous, which was fast and slightly sideways, like a crab that had just remembered it had somewhere to be. I counted patients in my head. We had 11 on the floor that night. I started counting rooms. I counted to 10.
Dara, 10 minutes, come on.
I looked at the door at the end of the hall. Room 412. The light under the door was on. It was always on. Calvin never let us turn it off at night. I told Marcus I would get 412 myself and meet him downstairs. He nodded and moved toward the stairwell. I watched him push through the door. The red emergency light swallowed him, and then the door swung shut, and then I was alone in the corridor. That was the last time I saw Marcus Teal. I did not know that then. I walked to room 412 and opened the door. Calvin Merritt was not in his bed. He was in the chair by the window, sitting upright, both hands flat on his knees, watching the empty parking lot below. 11 months of dementia diagnosis, and I had never once seen him sit with that kind of stillness. He turned when I opened the door, and he looked at me with eyes that were completely clear. That should have been the thing that stopped me. Eyes like that do not belong to a patient who, 3 days prior, had asked me to please stop moving the moon. But I was still thinking about the count, still thinking about getting everyone to the 3rd floor. I started to tell him we needed to go.
You don't need to take me anywhere, Dara. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
He said my name. I had worked his floor for 11 months and I had never told him my name. The chart was in the nurse's station. The badge I wore had only my last name on it. I stood in the doorway and I felt something drop in my chest. Something small and cold, the way a penny drops through ice on a winter pond. And then I heard myself say something I did not plan to say. I said, "How do you know my name?" And he smiled, and it was the worst kind of smile. Not cruel, not threatening, patient. The smile of someone who has said a thing many times and is prepared to say it as many more times as necessary.
You're the one who stays, Dara. You always stay. Every time they clear the floor, you come back to this room. You've been coming back to this room for 11 months.
I told him I needed him to come with me to the 3rd floor. I said it in my professional voice, which is a voice I constructed somewhere around my 3rd year of nursing school from equal parts calm authority and deliberate flatness. A voice designed to not invite negotiation. He just looked at me. Then he looked back at the window.
She already left. The doctor left 20 minutes ago. They all left. It's just us now, the way it always ends up being just us. You should go check the nurse's station. There's something there you need to see before you understand.
I told myself he was symptomatic. I told myself this was dissociative ideation, which is a real clinical term for what happens when a patient's internal narrative detaches from external reality. I had written that phrase in his chart 43 times. I walked back to the nurse's station and I told myself I found his chart on the desk, which was wrong because I had filed it an hour before my shift was supposed to end. Someone had pulled it and left it open. I looked at the identification page. The name was correct. Calvin Merritt. The admission date was correct. The diagnosis was correct. I turned to the photo, and the face in the photo was not the face of the man in room 412. The face in the photo was a woman. She had my jawline, my hair, my eyes. A woman who was not me, but who was built from the same materials. I put the chart down, I picked it up, I put it down again. There is a specific kind of moment in nursing when you see something that the rational mind simply refuses to file correctly. And you have to force yourself to continue processing. I was forcing myself to continue processing. I was failing.
Dara, why are you still on this floor?
Rourke's voice came through the intercom before I heard her voice in the building at all, which meant she was somewhere else. And also, somehow, right next to me. I pressed the respond button and asked her why the photo in Calvin Merritt's chart was not of Calvin Merritt. There was a pause. Not a long one. Long enough.
Still on this floor. The chart is accurate. Dara, come down to 3. We'll talk through everything when you're off the floor.
I had worked under Elaine Rourke for 4 years. I knew the particular quality of her professional calm. It was a constructed thing, same as my own professional voice, assembled from the same institutional blueprint. What I heard in the intercom was not that calm. What I heard was a different kind of calm, the kind that is not constructed, but is simply what remains when a person has moved past concern. She was not worried about me. She knew exactly where I was and what I was doing, and she was not worried about it at all. That scared me more than the photograph. The intercom clicked twice and then did not go silent.
This message is from October 9th, 11:20 p.m.
What came out of the intercom next was a conversation. 2 voices, a woman and a patient. The woman's voice doing the careful, measured work of a clinical interview, and the patient's voice doing the slow, repetitive work of someone describing a fixed idea they have described many times before. It took me 4 seconds to recognize that the woman's voice was mine. My inflections, my particular habit of pausing before proper nouns, the way I exhale slightly before saying the word because. It was me, having a conversation in room 412 that I had no memory of. On a night I had been off duty. In the recording, I heard myself say something I would never say in a clinical setting. I heard myself say, I don't know how I got here tonight. I don't remember leaving home. I took the stairs to the basement. I do not have a clean narrative explanation for that decision. I can tell you that my legs were moving and the rest of me was cataloging evidence. The photograph, the recording, the specific quality of Rourke's voice on the intercom, the 11 months of nights I had spent on that floor starting a job I did not remember applying for. I went to the basement because there was a thing I needed to see. Calvin had told me so, and Calvin, apparently, had a better map of my night than I did. The records room was unlocked. The desk lamp was already on. The filing cabinet in the 3rd row, 6th from the left, was already open. The folder was at the front, as if someone had organized this for me. As if someone had set this room like a stage before the actor arrived and needed to figure out what play they were in. I opened the folder and I read the admission record for Calvin Merritt, admitted 11 months ago. Presenting complaint. Patient found outside a hospital building in institutional clothing, disoriented, claiming to be nursing staff. Patient exhibits persistent delusional framework in which she believes herself to be a nurse assigned to the psychiatric ward. Patient refers to herself by the name Dara. Patient insists she is not the patient. The last line of the clinical notes read, "Patient returns to ward voluntarily following each Protocol 7 clearance. Mechanism unknown. Relapse is consistent and complete. Recommend documentation only." There is a photo clipped to the back page. I looked at it for a long time. The lamp buzzed above me, that particular 60 Hz hum that fluorescent lights make when they are close to the end of their lifespan. That sound that is somehow both mechanical and alive. I looked at the photograph, and I understood what Calvin had been trying to tell me across 11 months of conversations I had filed as symptoms. I went back to room 412. I do not know what I was going to say. When I opened the door, the room was empty. The bed was made. Not the way a patient makes a bed. Corners uneven, pillow pressed flat from sleeping. The way I make a bed. Tight corners, pillow standing upright. The chair was pushed back against the wall. On the seat of the chair there was a lanyard. My name on a badge in small block letters. But the first name on the badge was not a name I recognized. The photograph on the badge was mine. I went to the bathroom at the back of the room. I stood in front of the mirror above the sink. The light in there was the overhead kind, no diffuser, the kind that makes faces look clinical and exact. I looked at my face for a long time. I was looking for the line between who I believed I was and what the record said I was. I could not find it. That is the part that stays with me, not the photograph, not the recording. Not Rourke's voice with all the worry cleaned out of it. The part that stays is standing in that bathroom and not being able to find the seam. There are mornings now, and I use the word mornings carefully because I'm not always certain how many have passed when someone slides a tray through the slot in the door. I have not touched the food. I am waiting for my shift to start. I keep telling them I am the nurse. They keep nodding. They keep writing things down. The man across the hall, the one in room 408. He looks at me through the window in his door sometimes, and his eyes are completely clear. And I think he is waiting too. I think we are all waiting for the same thing, here on the 4th floor of Mercy General. I think the 4th floor has always been full of people waiting for a shift that never starts.